Act 3. In the rectory garden next morning, with the sun shining and the birds in full song. The garden wall has a 5-barred wooden gate wide enough to admit a carriage in the middle. Beside the gate hangs a bell and a coiled spring, communicating with a pole outside. The carriage drive comes down the middle of the garden and then swerves to its left, where it ends in a little gravelled circus opposite the rectory porch. Beyond the gate is seen the dusty highroad, parallel with the wall, bounded on the far side by a strip of turf and an unfenced pine wood. On the lawn between the house and the drive is a clipped yew tree with a garden bench in its shade. On the opposite side the garden is shut in by a box hedge, and there is a sundial on the turf, with an iron chair near it. A little path leads off through the box hedge behind the sundial. Frank, seated on the chair near the sundial, on which he has placed the morning papers, is reading the Standard. His father comes from the house, red-eyed and shivery, and meets Frank's eye with misgiving. Frank, looking at his watch. 11:30. Nice hour for a rector to come down to breakfast. Reverend Samuel. Don't mock, Frank, don't mock. I'm a little, shivering. Frank. Off color? Reverend Samuel, repudiating the expression. No, sir. Unwell this morning. Where's your mother? Frank. Don't be alarmed. She's not here. Gone to town by the 11:13 with Bessie. She left several messages for you. Do you feel equal to receiving them now, or shall I wait till you've breakfast? I have breakfast, sir. I'm surprised at your mother going to town when we have people staying with us. They'll think it very strange. Possibly she has considered that. At all events, if Crofts is going to stay here, and you're going to sit up every night with him until 4, recalling the incidents of your fiery youth, it is clear to my mother's duty as a prudent housekeeper to go up to the stores and order a barrel of whiskey and a few hundred siphons. I did not observe that Sir George drank excessively. Frank. You were not in a condition to, Governor. Do you mean to say that I... Frank, calmly. I never saw a beneficed clergyman less sober. The anecdotes you told us about your past career were so awful that I really don't think Pray would have passed the night under your roof, if it hadn't been for the way my mother and he took to one another. Nonsense, sir. I am Sir George Crofts' host. I must talk to him about something, and he only has one subject. Where is Mr. Praed now? Frank. He is driving with my mother and Bessie to the station. Reverend Samuel. Is Crofts up yet? Oh, long ago. He hasn't turned a hair. He's in much better practice than you. He has kept it up ever since, probably. He's taken himself off somewhere to smoke. Frank resumes his paper. The Reverend Samuel turns disconsolately towards the gate, then comes back irresolutely. Frank? Yes? Do you think the Warrens will expect to be asked here after yesterday afternoon? Oh, they've been asked already. Crofts informed us at breakfast that you told him to bring Mrs. Warren and Vivie over here today and invite them to make this house their home. It was after that communication that my mother found she must go to the town by the 11:13 train. Reverend Samuel, with despairing vehemence. I never gave such invitation. I never thought of such a thing. Frank, compassionately. How do you know, Governor, what you said and thought last night? Oh, hello. Here's Praed back again. Praed, coming in through the gate. Good morning. Reverend Samuel. Good morning. I must apologize for not having met you at breakfast. I have a touch of Frank. A clergyman's sore throat, Praed. Fortunately not chronic. Praed, changing the subject. Well, I must say your house is in a charming spot here. Really, most charming. Reverend Samuel. Yes, it is indeed. Frank will take you for a walk, Mr. Praed, if you like. I'll ask you to excuse me. I must take the opportunity to write my sermon while Mrs. Gardner is away and you are all amusing yourselves. You won't mind, will you? Praed. Oh, certainly not. Don't stand on the slightest ceremony with me. Thank you. He stammers his way to the porch and vanishes into the house. Praed, sitting down on the turf near Frank and hugging his ankles. Curious thing it must be writing a sermon every week. Frank. Ever so curious. If he did it. He buys them. He's gone for some soda water. Praed. My dear boy, I wish you would be more respectful of your father. You know you can be so nice when you like. My dear Pratty, you forget that I have to live with the governor. When two people live together, it doesn't matter whether they're father and son, husband and wife, brother and sister. They can't keep up the polite humbug which comes so easy for 10 minutes on an afternoon call. Now the governor, who unites to so many admirable domestic qualities the irresoluteness of a sheep and the pompousness and aggressiveness of a jackass. Oh, pray, my dear Frank, remember, he is your father. I will give him due credit for that. But just imagine his telling Crofts to bring the Warrens over here. He must have been ever so drunk. You know, my dear Pratty, my mother wouldn't stand Mrs. Warren for a moment. Prayed. But your mother doesn't know anything about Mrs. Warren, does she? I don't know. Her journey to town looks as if she did. Not that my mother would mind in the ordinary way. She is stuck like a brick to lots of women who have gotten into trouble. But they were all nice women. That's what makes the real difference. Mrs. Warren no doubt has her merits, but she's ever so rowdy, and my mother simply wouldn't put up with her. Oh, so, hello! This exclamation is provoked by the reappearance of the clergyman, who comes out of the house in haste and dismay. Frank, Mrs. Warren and her daughter are coming across the heath with Crofts. I saw them from the study windows. What am I to say about your mother? Frank, jumping up energetically. Stick on your hats and go out and say how delighted you are to see them. And that Frank's in the garden, that Mother and Bessie have been called to the bedside for a sick relative, and were ever so sorry they couldn't stop. And that you hope Mrs. Warren slept well, and say any blessed thing except the truth, and leave the rest to Providence. Reverend Samuel. But how are we to get rid of them afterwards? Frank. There's no time to think of that now. Here! He bounds into the porch and returns immediately with a clerical felt hat, which he claps on his father's head. Now, off with you! Pray to now wait here and give the thing an unpremeditated air. The clergyman, dazed but obedient, hurries off towards the gate. Praed gets up from the turf and dusts himself. We must get that old lady back to town somehow, Praed. Come! Honestly, dear Pratty, do you like seeing them together? Vivy and the old lady. Praed. Why not? Frank. Don't it make your flesh creep ever so little? That wicked old devil up to every villainy under the sun, I swear, and Vivy. Ugh. Praed. Hush, pray. They're coming. The clergyman and Crofts are seen coming along the road, followed by Mrs. Warren and Vivy walking affectionately together. Frank. Look. She actually has her arm round the old woman's waist. It's her right arm. She began it. She's gone sentimental, by God. Ugh. Now do you feel the creeps? The clergyman opens the gate, and Mrs. Warren and Vivy pass him and stand in the middle of the garden looking at the house. Frank, in an ecstasy of dissimulation, turns gaily to Mrs. Warren, exclaiming, Ever so delighted to see you, Mrs. Warren. This quiet old rectory garden becomes you perfectly. Mrs. Warren. Well, I never. Did you hear that, George? He says I look well in a quiet old rectory garden. Reverend Samuel, still holding the gate for Crofts, who loafs through it, heavily bored. You look well everywhere, Mrs. Warren. Frank. Bravo, Governor. Now look here. Let's have an awful jolly time of it before lunch. First, let's see the church. Everyone has to do that. It's a regular old 13th century church, you know. The governor's ever so fond of it because he's got up a restoration fund and had it completely rebuilt 6 years ago. Praed will be able to show its points. Reverend Samuel, mooning hospitality at them. I shall be pleased, I'm sure, if Sir George and Mrs. Warren really care about it. Mrs. Warren. Oh, come along and get to Dover. It'll do George good. I'll lay he doesn't trouble church much. Crofts, turning back towards the gate. I have no objection. Reverend Samuel. Not that way. We go through the fields, if you don't mind. Round here. He leads the way by the little path towards the box hedge. Crofts. Oh, all right. He goes with the parson. Praed follows with Mrs. Warren. Vivy does not stir, but watches them until they have gone, with all the lines of purpose in her face marking it strongly. Frank. Ain't you coming? Vivy. No. I want to give you a warning, Frank. You were making fun of my mother just now when you said that about the rectory garden. That is barred in future. Please treat my mother with as much respect as you would treat your own. My dear Viv, she wouldn't appreciate it. She's not like my mother. The same treatment wouldn't do for both cases. But what on earth has happened to you? Last night you were perfectly agreed as to your mother and her set. This morning I find you attitudinizing sentimentality with your arm round your parents' waist. Vivi, flushing. Attitudinizing? Frank, that was how it struck me. First time I ever saw you do a second-rate thing. Vivi, controlling herself. Yes, Frank. There has been a change. But I don't think it's a change for the worse. Yesterday I was a little prig. And today? Vivi, wincing, then looking at him steadily. Today I know my mother better than you do. Oh, heaven forbid! Vivi, what do you mean? Viv, there's a Freemasonry among thoroughly immoral people that you know nothing of. You've too much character. That's the bond between your mother and me. That's why I know her better than you'll ever know her. Vivi, you are wrong. You know nothing about her. If you knew the circumstances in which my mother had to struggle, Frank, adroitly finishing the sentence for her, I should know why she is what she is, shouldn't I? What difference could that make? Circumstances or no circumstances, Viv, you won't be able to stand your mother. Vivi, very angry. Why not? Frank, because she's an old wretch, Viv. If you ever put your arm round her waist in my presence again, I'll shoot myself there and then as protest against an exhibition that revolts me. Vivi, must I choose between dropping your acquaintance and dropping my mother's? Frank, gracefully. Oh, that would put the old lady at ever such a disadvantage. No, Viv, your infatuated little boy will have to stick with you in any case. But he's all the more anxious that you shouldn't make mistakes. It's no use, Viv. Your mother's impossible. She may be a good sort, but she's a bad lot, a very bad lot. Vivi, hotly. Frank! He stands his ground. She turns away and sits down on the bench under the yew tree, struggling to recover her self-command. Then she says, Is she to be deserted by all the world because she's what you call a bad lot? Has she no right to live? Frank, no fear of that, Viv. She won't ever be deserted. Vivi, but I am to desert her, I suppose? Frank, babyishly, lulling her and making love to her with his voice. Mustn't go live with her. A little family group of mother and daughter wouldn't be a success. Spoil our little group. Vivi, falling under the spell. What little group? The babes in the wood. Vivi and little Frank. He slips his arm round her waist and nestles against her like a weary child. Let's go and get covered up with leaves. Vivi, rhythmically, rocking him like a nurse. Fast asleep, hand in hand, under the trees. Frank, the wise little girl and a silly little boy. Vivi, the dear little boy and his dowdy little girl. Frank, ever so peaceful, and relieved from the imbecility of the little boy's father and the questionableness of the little girl's. Vivi, smothering the word against her breast. Shh. Little girl wants to forget all about her mother. They are silent for some moments, rocking one another. Then, Vivi wakes up with a shock, exclaiming, What a pair of fools we are! Come, sit up. Oh, gracious, your hair. She smooths it. Oh, I wonder do all grown-up people play in that childish way when nobody is looking? I never did when I was a child. Frank. Neither did I. You are my first playmate. He catches her hand to kiss it, but checks himself to look round first. Very unexpectedly, he sees Crofts emerging from the box hedge. Oh, damn! Vivi. Why damn, dear? Frank, whispering. Shh! Here's the brute Crofts. He sits farther away from her with an unconcerned air. Vivi. Don't be rude to him, Frank. I particularly wish to be polite to him. It will please my mother. Frank makes a wry face. Crofts. Could I have a few words with you, Miss Vivi? Vivi. Certainly. Crofts to Frank. You'll excuse me, Gardner. They're waiting for you in the church if you don't mind. Frank, rising. Anything to oblige you, Crofts. Except church. If you want anything, Vivi, ring the gate bell. And a domestic will appear. He goes into the house with unruffled suavity. Crofts, watching him with a crafty air as he disappears, and speaking to Vivi with an assumption of being on privileged terms with her. pleasant young fellow, that's Miss Vivy. Pity he has no money, isn't it? Vivy. Do you think so? Crofts. Well, what's he to do? No profession? No property? What's he good for? Vivy. I realise his disadvantages, Sir George. Crofts. A little taken aback at being so precisely interpreted. Oh, it's not that. But while we're in this world, we're in it. And money's money. Vivy does not answer. Nice day, isn't it? Vivy, with scarcely veiled contempt for this effort at conversation. Very. Crofts, with brutal good humour as if he liked her pluck. Well, that's not what I came to say. Affecting frankness. Now listen, Miss Vivy. I'm quite aware that I'm not a young lady's man. Indeed, Sir George? No. And to tell you the honest truth, I don't want to be either. But when I say a thing, I mean it. When I feel sentiment, I feel it in earnest. And what I value, I pay hard money for. That's the sort of man I am. It does you great credit, I'm sure. Oh, I don't mean to praise myself. I have my faults, heaven knows. No man is more sensible of that than I am. I know I'm not perfect. That's one of the advantages of being a middle-aged man. For I'm not a young man, and I know it. But my code is a simple one, and, I think, a good one. Honour between man and man. Fidelity between man and woman. And no cant about this religion or that religion, but an honest belief that things are making for good on the whole. Vivy, with biting irony. A power, not ourselves, that makes for righteousness, eh? Crofts, taking her seriously. Oh, certainly not ourselves. Of course. You understand what I mean. He sits down beside her, as one who has found a kindred spirit. Well, now, as to practical matters. You may have an idea that I've flung my money about, but I haven't. I'm richer today than I was when I first came into the property. I've used my knowledge of the world to invest my money in ways that other men have overlooked. And whatever I may be, I'm a safe man. From the money point of view. Vivy. It's very kind of you to tell me this. Crofts. Oh, well, come, Miss Vivy. You needn't pretend you don't see what I'm driving at. I want to settle down with a lady, Crofts. I suppose you think me very blunt, eh? Not at all. I am much obligated to you for being so definite and businesslike. I quite appreciate the offer. The money, the position, Lady Crofts, and so on. But I think I will say no if you don't mind. I'd rather not. She rises and strolls across the sundial to get out of his immediate neighbourhood. Crofts, not at all discouraged, and taking advantage of the additional room left him on the seat to spread himself comfortably, as if a few preliminary refusals were part of the inevitable routine of courtship. I'm in no hurry. It was only just to let you know in case young Gardner should try and trap you. Leave the question open. Vivy, sharply. My no is final. I won't go back from it. She looks authoritatively at him. He grins, leans forward with his elbows on his knees to prod with his stick at some unfortunate insect in the grass, and looks cunningly at her. She turns away impatiently. I'm a good deal older than you. 25 years, quarter of a century. I shan't live forever, and I'll take care that you shall be well off when I'm gone. Vivy. I am proof against even that inducement, Sir George. Don't you think you'd better take your answer? There's not the slightest chance of my altering it. Crofts, rising, after a final slash at a daisy, and beginning to walk to and fro. Well, no matter. I could tell you some things that would change your mind fast enough, but I won't. Because I'd rather win you by honest affection. I was a good friend to your mother. Ask her whether I wasn't. She never would have made the money that paid for your education if it wasn't for my advice and help. Not to mention the money I advanced her. Not many men would have stood by her as I have. I put not less than £40,000 into it from first to last. Vivy, staring at him. Do you mean to say you were my mother's business partner? Yes. Now just think of all the trouble and explanations it would save if we were to keep the whole thing in the family, so to speak. Ask your mother whether she'd like to have to explain all her affairs to a perfect stranger. Vivi. I see no difficulty, since I understand that the business is wound up and the money invested. Crofts, stopping short, amazed. Wound up? Wind up a business that's paying 35% on the worst years? Not likely. Who told you that? Vivi, her colour quite gone. Do you mean that it is still? She stops abruptly, and puts her hand on the sundial to support herself. Then she gets quickly to the iron chair and sits down. What business are you talking about? Well, the fact is, it's not what would be considered exactly a high-class business in my set. The country set, you know. Our set it will be, if you think better of my offer. Not that there's any mystery about it. Don't think that. Of course you know by your mother's being in it that it's perfectly straight and honest. I've known her for many years, and I can say of her that she'd cut off her hands sooner than touch anything that was not what it ought to be. I'll tell you all about it if you like. I don't know whether you've found in travelling how hard it is to find a really comfortable private hotel. Vivi, sickened, averting her gaze. Yes. Go on. Well, that's all it is. Your mother has a genius for managing such things. We've got 2 in Brussels, 1 in Berlin, 1 in Vienna, and 2 in Budapest. Of course there are others besides ourselves in it, but we hold most of the capital. And your mother's indispensable as managing director. You've noticed, I dare say, that she travels a great deal. But you see she can't mention such things in society. Once let out the word hotel and everybody says you keep a public house. You wouldn't like people to say that of your mother, would you? That's why we're so reserved about it. By the by, you'll keep it to yourself, won't you? Since it's been a secret so long, it had better remain so. Vivi. And this is the business you invite me to join you in? Oh, no. My wife shan't be troubled with business. You'll not be in it more than you've always been. Vivi. I always been? What do you mean? Only that you always lived on it. It paid for your education, and the dress you have on your back. Don't turn up your nose at business, Miss Vivi. Where would your Newnhams and Girtons be without it? Vivi, rising, almost beside herself. Take care. I know what this business is. Crofts, starting, with a suppressed oath. Who told you? Your partner. My mother. Crofts, black with rage. The old... Vivi looks quickly at him. He swallows the epithet and starts swearing and raging foully to himself. But he knows that his cue is to be sympathetic. He takes refuge in generous indignation. She ought to have more consideration for you. I'd never have told you. Vivi. I think you would probably have told me when we were married. It would have been a convenient weapon to break me in with. Crofts, quite sincerely. I never intended that. On my word as a gentleman, I didn't. Vivi wonders at him. Her sense of the irony of his protest cools and braces her. She replies with contemptuous self-possession. It does not matter. I suppose you understand that when we leave here today, our acquaintance ceases. Crofts. Why? Is it for helping your mother? Vivi. My mother was a very poor woman who had no reasonable choice but to do as she did. You were a rich gentleman. And you did the same for the sake of 35%. You are a pretty common sort of scoundrel, I think. That is my opinion of you. Crofts, after a stare. Not at all displeased and much more at his ease on these frank terms than on their former ceremonious ones. Go it, little missy, go it. It doesn't hurt me and it amuses you. Why the devil shouldn't I invest my money that way? I take the interest on my capital like other people. I hope you don't think I dirty my own hands with the work. Come. You wouldn't refuse the acquaintance of my mother's cousin, the Duke of Bregavia, because some of the rents he gets are earned in queer ways. You wouldn't cut the Archbishop of Canterbury, I suppose, because the ecclesiastical commissioners have a few publicans and sinners amongst their tenants. Do you remember the Crofts Scholarship at Newnham? Well, that was founded by my brother, the MP. He gets his 22% out of a factory with 600 girls in it. And not one of them gets wages enough to live on. How do you suppose most of them manage, huh? Ask your mother. And do you expect me to turn my back on 35% when all the rest are pocketing what they can like sensible men? No such fool. If you're going to pick and choose your acquaintances on moral principles, you'd better clear out of this country unless you want to cut yourself out of all decent society. Vivi, conscience-stricken. You might go on to point out that I myself never asked where the money I spent came from. I believe I am just as bad as you. Crofts. Of course you are. And a very good thing, too. What harm does it do, after all? Rallying her jocularly. So you don't think me such a scoundrel now you've come to think it over, eh? Vivi. I have shared profits with you. And I admitted you just now to the familiarity of knowing what I think of you. Crofts, with serious friendliness. To be sure you did. You won't find me a bad sort. I don't go in for being superfine intellectually, but I've plenty of honest human feeling. And the old Crofts breed comes out in a sort of instinctive hatred of anything low, in which I'm sure you'll sympathize with me. Believe me, Miss Vivi, the world isn't such a bad place as the croakers make out. So long as you don't fly openly in the face of society, society doesn't ask any inconvenient questions. And it makes precious short work of the cads who do. There are no secrets better kept than the secrets that everybody guesses. In the society I can introduce you to, no lady or gentleman would so far forget themselves as to discuss my business affairs or your mother's. No man can offer you a safer position. Vivi, studying him curiously. I suppose you really think you're getting on famously with me. Crofts. Well, I hope I may flatter myself that you think better of me than you first did. Vivi, quietly. I hardly find you worth thinking about at all now. She rises and turns toward the gate, pausing on her way to contemplate him and say almost gently, but with intense conviction. When I think of the society that tolerates you, and the laws that protect you, when I think of how helpless 9 out of 10 young girls would be in the hands of you and my mother, the unmentionable woman and her capitalist bully, Crofts, livid. Damn you! You need not. I feel among the damned already. She raises the latch of the gate to open it and go out. He follows her, and puts his hand heavily on the top bar to prevent its opening. Crofts, panting with fury. Do you think I'll put up with this from you, you young devil, you? Vivi, unmoved. Be quiet. Someone will answer the bell. Without flinching a step, she strikes the bell with the back of her hand. It clangs harshly, and he stares back involuntarily. Almost immediately, Frank appears at the porch with his rifle. Frank, with cheerful politeness. Will you have the rifle, Viv, or shall I operate? Vivi. Frank, have you been listening? Only for the bell, I assure you, so that you shouldn't have to wait. I think I showed great insight into your character, Crofts. Crofts. For 2 pins, I'd take that gun from you and break it across your head. Frank, stalking him cautiously. Oh, pray don't. I'm ever so careless in handling firearms. Sure to be a fatal accident with a reprimand from the coroner's jury for my negligence. Vivi. Put the rifle away, Frank. It's quite unnecessary. Frank. Quite right, Viv. Much more sportsmanlike to catch him in a trap. Crofts, understanding the insult, makes a threatening movement. Frank. Crofts, there are 15 cartridges in the magazine here, and I am a dead shot at the present distance at an object of your size. Crofts. Oh, you needn't be afraid. I'm not going to touch you. Frank. Ever so magnanimous of you under the circumstances. Thank you. Crofts. I'll just tell you this before I go. It may interest you since you're so fond of one another. Allow me, Mr. Frank, to introduce you to your half-sister, the eldest daughter of your Reverend Samuel Gardner. Miss Vivi, your half-brother. Good morning. He goes out through the gates and along the road. Frank, after a pause of stupefaction, raising the rifle. You'll testify before the coroner that it's an accident, Viv. He takes aim at the retreating figure of Crofts. Vivi seizes the muscle and puts it round her breast. Vivi, Fire now! You may! Frank, dropping his end of the rifle hastily. Stop! She lets it go. It falls on the turf. Oh, you've given your little boy such a turn. Suppose it had gone off. Vivi, suppose it had. Do you think it would not have been a relief to have some sharp physical pain tearing through me? Frank, coaxingly. Oh, take it ever so easy, dear Viv. Remember, even if the rifle scared that fellow into telling the truth for one time in his life, that only makes us the babes in the woods in earnest. He holds out his arms to her. Come, and be covered up with leaves again. Vivi, with a cry of disgust. Oh, not that. Not that. You make all my flesh creep. Frank. Why? What's the matter? Vivi. Goodbye. She makes for the gate. Frank, jumping up. Viv! Viv! She turns in the gateway. Where are you going to? Where shall we find you? Vivi. At Honoria Fraser's chamber, 67 Chancery Lane for the rest of my life! She goes off quickly in the opposite direction of that taken by Crofts. Frank. But I say! Wait! Oh, dash it! He runs after her.